Okay, so I'm going to introduce our speaker. So thank you so much. Thank you again. We have such a karsatol for everybody, every speaker, beautiful speaker who comes on every day and shares with us and gives us the ability to grow and to learn together. So Miriam Rhodes is living in Bat Ayin for the last 18 years in the mountains of Yehuda. She has a BS from Cornell, a master's degree from UC Berkeley. She taught high school physics for 18 years in Brooklyn. She has been learning and teaching Hasidus for the last 47 years. She has, it's beautiful. We love having guests who help pick our grapes, figs, pomegranates, and olives. She gives 2 Zoom classes on Sunday through Malchus and Gal Enai. So with much, I feel honored and privileged to introduce to you Miriam Rhodes. Miriam, are you there? Miriam? 1 second.
Unmute, here we go.
Oh, thank you, Miriam. Okay, I'm going to go on mute. Thank you. Go ahead.
All right, and if people want to put on their cameras, I'd be happy to. It's always nice to speak to real people there. It's a big mitzvah. I would tell my 11th grade class, you'll get extra credits if you put on your camera. Oh, thank you. Much. Oh, this is great. Oh, I'm having a much better time already. Beautiful. Thank you. So, yes, wow. So it says in the Gemara that Rabbah, the great sage Rabbah, would always tell a joke before he began speaking. And it even says that all the students would laugh. And the Alter Rebbe even brings this down in Tanya, how Rabbah would always say a joke and the students would laugh. Don't feel any pressure to laugh. You know, I'll tell a very short one-line joke that's kind of relevant today. So the Baal Shem Tov was known as the Besht. We're going to be speaking a bit more about him. And he had a great grandson named Rabbi Nachman, people might be familiar with. So here it is. What did Rabbi Nachman say to the Baal Shem Tov? He said, Zaidi, you're the Besht. Okay, that's the joke. Don't feel any pressure to laugh. I always laugh at that. I don't know why, but there you go. So I'm Yotzi on the joke. Okay, so today, Chai Elo. So when Naomi asked me a while ago when I could teach, even though it was a bit in the future, I picked today Chai Elo, the 18th of Elul, Chayas in the month of Elul. Yes, to give life, to give vitality to the avoda of Elul, and it's also a special day. There's 3 special things. First, it's the yurtzeit of the Maharal of Prague, Rabbi Yehuda Lowy ben Bitzalel. He passed away in 1609. I'm sure everyone's heard of the Maharal of Prague. I just want to give over it, since it's his yurtzeit, something in his name. So the Maharal wrote one of his sforim is known as Nativ HaTshuva, the path of return. And in it, he quotes Yalkut Shmoni. Yalkut Shmoni is a medrash, it's teaching from the sages. And here it is. So I guess it seems like there's a group of people who want to know, they want to know, they ask 4 different levels of consciousness. The sinner, what is his punishment? The sinner, what is his punishment? Because, it might be like just a little punishment and a really good, I'm only kidding. So they want to know, you could see it might be reasonable to know what is the punishment. So if they ask for the first it says, Sha'al chachma chotem ma ansho. First they ask wisdom. Wisdom is actually very interesting, the lowest level here. They ask wisdom, what is the sinner, what is his punishment? And wisdom answers in the voice of Shlomo HaMelech, King Solomon, the wisest of all men. He answers, negativity pursues the sinner. No, that doesn't sound very good. They didn't like that. They went up to a higher level of consciousness, nevuah, prophecy. They asked prophecy, the sinner, what is his punishment? And nevuah prophecy answered in the verse of Yehezkel, a great prophet, the soul that sins shall die. Also, not saying so good. That doesn't sound so good. And then they asked Torah. They went up to another level. They asked the Torah itself, and the Torah answers, let him bring an asham, a guilt offering, and he'll be atoned for. And then we're going to get to the final levels when they ask Hashem. But to understand the levels that we're talking about, so wisdom, Shlomo HaMelech. So it's like, it's like a good therapist can show us, can make a map. When we do this, we have bad results. And then we do it again, we'll have the same bad results. We might not have wondered. So this is the level of wisdom. Negativity will pursue the sinner. If we do the same thing, so that doesn't work. And what about Yehezkel saying the sinner will die? So for Yehezkel, for a Navi, someone who's one with Hashem, who feels Hashem's unity, to sin is to be separated, to transgress Hashem's will is to be separated from Hashem. For a Navi, for someone like that, it's death. But just being separated from Hashem is death. And the Torah says to bring an offering in the Beis Hamikdash. So we're not always able to get. We want to get back to that Beis Hamikdash very soon. But let's hear what Hashem says. They go to Hashem, and Hashem gives a different answer. Hashem's answer is, they ask him, the sinner, what is his punishment? Hashem answers, let him do tshuva. Let him do tshuva and he'll be redeemed and he'll be atoned for. Because what does it mean? Hashem is saying that if we become deeper people, and if we become more compassionate people, and if we become less judgmental people, why define it as a transgression? Why define it as a mistake? Let's define it as a mitzvah. Let's define it as getting closer to Hashem. Let's turn it over. This is what it says in Gemara Yuma. It says if we do tshuva out of fear, like the fear of punishment is the lowest level of tshuva. We do tshuva out of fear, then all our transgressions are immediately redefined as mistakes. Because if I knew then what I knew now, I never would have done it. So it was a mistake. Then then it also says if we do tshuva out of love of Hashem, that all the transgressions are redefined as mitzvahs. Because if I become a deeper person and a less judgmental person and a more compassionate person, let's define it as what it is. It was a transforming, it was a catalyst. It was a catalyst for growth. That very same thing was a catalyst for growth. So the Maharal brings this medrash down. And then for simple people like us, what's a kavanah? What's a simple intention in davening? And he says just to have the intention when we're davening, when we're praying to Hashem, to think, I want to do tshuva, I want to get close to you. This is what the Maharal says in the Tifat Tshuva. I want to do tshuva, I want to get close to you, something we can remember. And that's the inner part of all prayer to Hashem, something simple. So that's what I wanted to share from the Maharal. L'chaim, l'chaim, he should have an aliyah neshama. His soul should go up. And now today, Chai Elul is also a Hasidic Yontif. Hasidim say good Yontif to each other because it's the birthday of the Baal Shem Tov and the birthday of the Alter Rebbe, the Baal HaTanya. So I want to share some of their teaching with you. So the Baal Shem Tov was born in 1698 to his very elderly parents. His father the Baal Shem Tov's name was Yisroel, and his father was Eliezer, and his mother was Sarah. And his father died when he was very young, when he was 4 or 5. And the last words his father told him is to fear only Hashem and to love every Jew. So there are teachings of when the Baal Shem Tov reveals himself, he got instructions from all sorts of holy people, and he lived among the hidden tzaddikim. And when he began to reveal his teachings, which was also in Chai Elul when he was 36 years old, there were 3 teachings of the Baal Shem Tov that are really revolutionary, and it's very meaningful and relevant to our life. One is that creation, that Hashem is recreating the world, yesh ma'ayin, something from nothing, each instant. Like it's always fresh. It's always a fresh creation. And Hashem is actively involved because people could think it was like a wind-up clock. You set the clock and that old-fashioned kind of clock, and then it keeps on going on that wind-up. But the universe is not like that. The universe takes Hashem's attention, re-attention each moment because it's a new recreation. So exciting. A fresh new universe each moment. And then the Baal Shem Tov really emphasized loving every Jew, that Hashem loves every Jew, that Hashem loves the simple Jew as much as he loves the great scholar. This was a very revolutionary idea at that time, that the simple Jew was also very precious to Hashem. Because there was a thought, there was a common idea at that time. They know that there's Hashem, the Torah, and the Jewish people, but it was considered like a straight line, like we have Hashem, we have the Torah in the middle, and we have the Jewish people. So the Jewish people that weren't involved with Torah were seen as being cut off from God. But the Baal Shem Tov showed it's really a triangle, that every Jew has Hashem on the top, Torah and the Jewish people, that every Jew has a direct connection with Hashem. And we want to bring that Jew back to his connection with Hashem. We want to reconnect, but the connection is there for every Jew. It's such an important idea to see the value, even in a very simple Jew. And then the other really exciting revolutionary idea was to serve Hashem b'simcha, serve Hashem with joy. Because there were people at that time that thought if you were a serious religious Jew, you shouldn't smile too much. Like, it is the Gullus, and it's true. And the Gullus is the exile is very tough, and we're waiting for Mashiach, and life is not so simple. So if you're a serious person, kind of turn down those corners of your mouth. Don't look too happy. But the Baal Shem Tov said, simcha, joy is the way we're going to bring the Geula Shalema. Yes, and he had one Rosh Hashanah, the Baal Shem Tov had a vision of going up to the heavens, to the Heichel, to the palace of Mashiach in the heavens. And he asked him, Master, when will you come? A good question, right? And Mashiach answered, Kushi Yafutsu minus Ekafutsu, when your wellsprings, the wellsprings of the inner panemius, the inner light of Torah, when your wellsprings of the inner light will spread out to Chutza. Chutza means outside, far away, to the far corners. And we need to try to bring that, the wisdom, the oneness of Torah, the love of Hashem for every Jew, to the far corners. And I always appreciated that, especially when emissaries would go out to far corners to bring the light, to reconnect the children of Israel with Hashem and inspire them with joy. But recently I learned that this chutzah, this outer, we have it within ourselves, and we have to bring the light there also. We have to bring the light of Hashem there, the light of understanding that it's creation, yesh ma'ayin, that it's not just a philosophical idea. It's like something real and something happening, and something that makes a difference. And loving every Jew, we want to reach it to all our fingers and toes and every organ, and to be besimcha. The son of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, Rabbi Elazar, he said, and it's quoted, it's in the Zohar, the Alter Rebbe quotes it in Tanya. He says, joy is large, chedva, joy is large on one side of my heart and weeping on the other. And why did he say this? He said this because his father, Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, shared with him the secrets of the destruction of the Beis Hamikdash, the temple in Jerusalem. So he was weeping because he understood what that tragedy really was. And he felt joy because his father was sharing with him the inner secrets of Torah. So, and this is Jewish life, there's like, we have, on the one hand, we have to believe Mashiach can come the next moment. At the same time, we have to see reality accurately in order to empathize with people that are suffering. We have to see reality accurately. And there's things to weep about. And at the same time, the next moment can be the Geula. And that's kind of sanity. That's Jewish sanity, because it's always different and it's always changing. And we have to maintain that balance of weeping on one side and joy on the other. But the sages teach that the weeping could be like inside, but we should try to show a cheery face to those around us. Let's not make people miserable, right? Let's give them a little smile from time to time. Okay, so that's what I wanted to share with you from the Baal Shem Tov. And now we're moving on to the Alter Rebbe, Rabbi Shneir Zalman of Liadi, the founder of the Chabad Lubavitch movement. He was born in 1745 when his his mentor, what he called his spiritual Zaydi, his spiritual grandfather, the Baal Shem Tov, was 47. It was his 47th birthday in 1745. And the Alter Rebbe is known as the Baal HaTanya and Shulchan Aruch. He wrote the Tanya, a wonderful guide for mental health and the creation of the cosmos and how to do tshuva and all sorts of useful things. And he wrote a Shulchan Aruch known as Shulchan Aruch Harav that's often quoted. His name was Shnei Or. His first name, Shnei Or, means two lights. So it's the light of the inner part of Torah and the light of Nigla and the light of Pnimius Torah. They're like the revealed part of Torah, the Chumash and the Gemara. He was a master of that. And he was also a master of the inner light of Torah, the two lights. So I'm so excited. I happen to be a big fan of the Alter Rebbe. So I'm just going to share a few ideas for a few minutes more here. So in his book of Maimorim, in his book of Hasidic discourses called the Kutei Torah, for Elul, there's a mimer that's called Ani L'Dodi V'Dodi Li Rashi Tevis Elul. So Ani L'Dodi V'Dodi Li is from the Song of Songs, Shir HaShirim. It means I am my beloved and my beloved is to me. And if you take the first letters in Hebrew of those four words, Ani L'Dodi V'Dodi Li, they spell out Elul. So Ani L'Dodi, I am to my beloved, is my effort down here below to connect with Hashem, and Dodi Li is Hashem's response to me. Ani L'Dodi V'Dodi Li. And it's here in this mimer, in this discourse, where the Alter Rebbe introduces the idea that in Elul, the king is in the field. The king, the great king, who normally is in his palace, and there's a lot of guards and only very special people can get in. In the month of Elul, the whole month of Elul, the king comes out to the field and simple people like us can actually go up to him. And the Alter Rebbe says he's smiling at us. He's looking at us with a smiling face and he wants the relationship with us as much as we want the relationship with him. The king is in the field and he's dressed informally. He has his Crocs on and we have our Crocs on or whatever. Whatever you might decide is your informal dress. The king, it's a reflection. It's a chance to get close to the King of Kings, the Holy One, blessed be he. The king is in the field and he's accessible, and this is a chance before Rosh Hashanah. And today, Chai Elul gives chayas, gives vitality to all of the avoda of Elul. The Alter Rebbe also points out in this mimer that in Elul, it's very unusual from all the other months, and that the 13 midos, the 13 qualities of rachamim, of compassion, that are higher than the creation of the world, are shining at us this month. It's something very special. Usually it's only on Yontif, on Yom Kippur, that the 13 midos shine, but on a regular weekday like today, what a deal. And these 13 midos, it's like Hashem has rachmanis, he has compassion on us. And this makes it so much easier for us to do tshuva, to reconnect with him, to return to him. Because it is much easier to apologize to someone that has rachmanis on us, that forgives us, that understands. It was tough. It's been tough, 2,000 years of galus. How can we not expect a Jew to make a mistake in 2,000 years, right, of this very dark galus? So the king has compassion. So the 13 midos, we're davening that Hashem should expand our consciousness to see the hidden good in all circumstances. This is the idea of betachon, of faith, of trust in God, and emunah. And it means that believing that Hashem is good. And this is something we have to work on because sometimes it's concealed. Sometimes the good is concealed. And we have to work on strengthening our belief that that Hashem is good, and that since the world is being created each moment, Hashem is creating the circumstances of our life. And the circumstances of our life, if we dig deeper, it's good. And that's something that we want to use. We're davening that Hashem should expand our consciousness so we can see the hidden good in all circumstances, to see through the outer layers in our reality and see that it's good. So we should all be blessed with being able to do that. L'chaim, l'chaim. And I want to share just one more. I see I have a few more minutes here. One more idea from the Alter Rebbe. So in the first 25 chapters of the Alter Rebbe's book of Tanya, he introduces his approach and his philosophy. Like in chapter 2, the Alter Rebbe introduces the idea of the divine soul of a Jew. Chelek Elokami Ma'al Mamish. The soul is really a part of Hashem's essence. Mamish. When the Alter Rebbe uses the word mamish in Hebrew, it means really, really, really. So we're not just saying poetry that the soul is a piece of Hashem's essence. It does sound very poetic, but it's mamish. It's really true. Hashem gave us a piece of his essence. And that's who we are, and that's where we want to identify. So in chapter 26, the Alter Rebbe gets to the practical life coaching approach. Now we're getting to life coaching. Chapter 26 and chapter 27, the Alter Rebbe speaks about what to do, but he speaks about 3 bad moods. 3 bad moods. It can be translated as 3 sources of depression and sadness, but I like that when I learned from one of my teachers, bad moods is the best translation because, let's face it. So, and he divides all bad moods into 3 categories of bad moods. So let's look, and then he gives a different cure for each of those 3 categories of bad moods, because it's only besimcha, it's only with joy that we can defeat our Yetzer Hara, that we can defeat our evil inclination, that we can defeat the thoughts that drive us crazy, that we don't have to give in to them. Simcha gives us strength to fight off those thoughts. So I just want to share with you the 3 bad moods, and what the Alter Rebbe says is the cure for them. So the first bad mood that the Alter Rebbe tackles is objective suffering, like issues of health, of parnas, of income, of family issues, like real things, objective suffering, not just something I'm imagining. And here the Alter Rebbe says that it's a hidden good, gamzu l'tova. This is also from good. It's coming from the hidden worlds. It's coming from the first 2 letters, the Yud and the Hey of Hashem's holy name. And it's just, this is how it's coming down into the world, that it's hard to see the good. And again, we're asking Hashem for a blessing that we should see through the outer layers and see the hidden good in the circumstances of our life. Then the second cause of bad moods could be spiritual failures. Like I'm walking down the street and I suddenly have a memory of a big spiritual failure. So the Alter Rebbe says, push it out of your mind immediately. This is not the time for it. This is your Yetzer Hara, your evil inclination trying to bum you out. Pick a time yourself when of the settled mind, we can look at it and we could decide to do tshuva, to return to Hashem. Tuesday at 3, pick the time that you like. Tuesday at 3, I'm going to sit down and see what I have to do to fix my life, to correct my life, to look at it, to make an accounting, but not spontaneously, the Alter Rebbe says. If it's spontaneous, because people used to think, oh, look, I'm bumming myself out about my sins. It must be a good thing. No, the Alter Rebbe says, push it out of your mind till you pick a time and you sit, so we pick a time and we sit down to do it. And the third bad mood, the third and last bad mood, are thoughts that arise in the mind. Because I can think, I've been working on myself for 47 years. How could I have had this thought? Oh no, I'm shocked. And the Alter Rebbe says, don't be shocked. This is where he says, Alavai to be a Beinani, Alavai to be someone on the path, Alavai to be someone on the path. And not only shouldn't we be bummed out, we should be besimcha that we had this thought. Why? How could we be joyful? Because there's 6 constant mitzvahs for all men and women and us. And the one of the 6 constant mitzvahs, the constant is like loving Hashem, fearing Hashem. But one of them is, we say it in the 3rd paragraph of the Shema when we daven, lo sasaru, that I shouldn't follow after my heart and eyes to prostitute myself after them. So this is a constant mitzvah. It means we have to know what we're thinking about. Thought management. I've often spoke in classes about thought management. We should really learn it in first grade. It's like, it's one of those essential things of sanity to know what I'm thinking about. So the Alter Rebbe says to push the thought out of our mind is a big mitzvah. It's a constant mitzvah. We're doing a mitzvah. And we should be besimcha, because the simcha shel mitzvah, the joy of doing a mitzvah, the joy of connecting with Hashem. But what if it's a situation where we feel we can't push it out of our mind? We're obsessed by it. It comes back all the time. So Hasidus teaches to push it out of your mind is yasiach daito. Yasiach is spelled with a samach. It means to push it out, to remove it from your mind. But the same word yasiach, if we spell it with a sin instead of a samach, it's still pronounced yasiach, but it means to speak about it. To speak about it to a best friend, to speak about it to a mentor. Could be a situation where someone needs professional advice. But it should be, in other words, we're not, so either it has to be a thought that we can push out of our minds, or we have to speak about it. We're not allowed to drive ourselves crazy, even if we're very good at it. We might be very good at it, but it's still not a mitzvah. So that's how the Alter Rebbe speaks about the 3 bad moods. So I just want to close with one more word about Elul. So Elul is a time of 2 things. First, it's looking back at the year, the previous year that we're finishing up, and asking myself, what can I fix? What do I want to change? It's a time to resolve conflicts. I learned from one of my teachers, Rabbi Yosef Yitzhak Jacobson, that before Rosh Hashanah, we should be on speaking terms with everybody. There shouldn't be anybody that we see walking down the street and we have to cross the street because we're not speaking to them. We have to be on speaking. We have to resolve conflicts. It's very important that we to apologize, make neglected apologies, resolve conflicts. And returning lost objects, returning borrowed objects. We want to, and we want to, finish up the year and extract the good, all the good. We should elevate all the good, give it back to Hashem as a gift. And in the new year to come, it's getting closer. There's 12 days. They say Hasidus teaches the 12 days from Chai Elul to the last day of Elul, or days that tikkun, that fix the previous year. Each day today we can fix last Tishrei, and each of these days it's a strong time. It's a joyful time to do tshuva with simcha, and it's a time to look forward. We want to articulate, we want to speak about our visions, our prayers, our resolutions for the new year, and Hashem should bless us. That the new year, that we should be able to fulfill our resolutions and our visions in a very good way. And Hashem should bless us all to see the good in life. L'chaim, l'chaim, and thank you.
Miriam, Miriam, can you go in a little bit deeper to that one thing you said about extracting the good and bringing it back to Hashem? Could you expand on that idea?
A little bit, I'll try. So it's acknowledging. We did get a few good mitzvahs in there, right? We might have smiled at a guest or something. Like we'll take that. There's an idea of giving Hashem credit for all the good that we do, not letting the ego take credit, because if the ego takes credit for the good that we do, the ego can fall into what's known in Yiddish as coming to me, entitlement. I think somebody owes me something. But if we give Hashem credit for the good that we do, so Hashem gave us the situation, Hashem gave us the energy to do the good, and Hashem even gave us the motivation to do the good. So I'm purely giving the good back to Hashem. So I hope, Naomi, does that help answer your question?
Yeah, that's beautiful. That's really beautiful. I want to just open it up, if you don't mind, 1 or 2 questions. Do you mind, Miriam? Does anybody want, we have like a few minutes, not much, we have 5 minutes. Does anybody want to ask Miriam any questions? Any questions? Anything to add? No? Oh, there it comes. Sarah Liba, go ahead.
Yeah. Hi. First of all, that was just so joyful and beautiful. I thank you so much. I just want to learn with you like forever, because I love the way you gave it over. So I want to ask, like, a lot of times, at least for me, the time you want to do tshuva the most and have the most clarity sometimes feels obscured, especially if there's a lot going on, that you almost feel like, don't bother me with that. Now I have to do tshuva. And that really is the place where you need to be because Hashem put you there. But what's your best tools to like get in the zone of self-assessment and really being able to, like, do you have any tips for how to get that clarity?
It's interesting that you asked it. I learned from one of my mashpiyas that the Hasidic Heshbon Hanefesh, the two columns, I used to think before I heard that, I thought the two columns, what's good about me, what's bad about me. That sounded a little depressing, but she said the two columns are what I'm thankful for is one column, and how I want to grow is the other column. So I think we have to find at least a couple of minutes for ourselves, a couple of quiet minutes where we can think about that. It could be something even before going to sleep. It seems like a good way to go to sleep, having those two ideas in mind. And as much as possible in life is so distracting. The more we can remember we're in Hashem's presence. I mean, just saying the words we're in Hashem's presence, I already feel a lot better. So those are some ideas. I hope that helps.
Thank you.
Can I ask on that vein? I'm sorry, Chaya but I also would like to know. So we don't. Tshuva isn't necessarily going back to the nitty gritty of everything we did wrong that day or that week, and assessing how we would have done it right and getting detailed, because that's what stops me. It's like really too difficult. A, to remember, and B, to figure out how to do that. It's a very, very taxing avoda. Is that not part of tshuva? From what I hear you saying, how do I want to grow? You're not necessarily evaluating every detail. What is your
So I think, it depends on the situation. I think there is that Tuesday at 3 where sometimes we do have to look at the nitty gritty details. But often, and other times, it's enough. How I want to grow can be, it's something that we have to judge ourselves when we have to look at those unfortunate nitty gritty details. And other times, how I want to grow can be the way to reconnect with Hashem.
Thank you.
So I think we might have finished the questions. I do give a Zoom class on Sundays at 8:30 through Galei Nai, if anyone would like to.
8:30 your time or 8:30 our time?
8:30 is Israel time. This will be the only Sunday. I have a wedding this Sunday night, but normally I'm 95% there. There's a link through the Galei Nai student site. I could maybe send it to Naomi and she